This is Hustlin Pro with Kelly Walker. Join Kelly as she talks sports with players, coaches, organizers, and entrepreneurs from Pee Wee League to Pro. Now here's your host, Kelly Walker.
Happy 1 year to Hustlin Pro. To celebrate, I have a VIP guest. There literally would not be a Hustlin Pro podcast without Scott Ellis. Hi, Scott.
Hey, Kelly.
How are you?
That's good. I'm great. It's good to be here.
Good. I'm excited for you to be
Thank you for
here.
having me on your podcast.
Well, thank you for coming and for this podcast itself. So you're the co-founder of Lifestyle Frisco, and you're the IT guy who helped me get this podcast project built and live. So first of all, thank you for saying yes when I kind of had this idea a little while ago.
Absolutely. Thank you for taking the initiative and just running with it the way you did.
So why did you say yes to a sports-specific podcast here in town?
Good question. I think there were a couple of reasons. One, I was interested in seeing us do more audio content in general. I think it's a great format. It's easy. It's very portable. People can listen to it in the car or while they're out for a walk or a run or what have you. I also appreciated how prepared you seemed to be to get something up and running. You seemed like you were very dedicated to the idea, and you were already working on a logo and all that kind of thing. And a lot of people have an idea for a podcast and they start something, but on average, a lot of people don't know this, the average podcast only makes it to episode 7. And then
7?
Then
we killed it.
Oh yeah, you're slaying it. But I mean, the problem that I think people confront is it seems very easy just to sit in front of a microphone and talk, and that's not the hard part. There's a whole lot of other work that goes on outside of that. When you realize how much work it is, it's a hobby that demands some of your time, and it needs to be done consistently if you're going to build an audience. And then the third reason I was interested in it was specifically because sports is so popular in Frisco, and there's so many sports-related activities and teams. There's an endless amount of content, and I thought it would be a great way to cover all those things. And I love the fact that you're doing, as we say, from Pee Wee to Pro. I mean, you've got the gauntlet covered, and they're all good stories.
Thank you.
I think the first one you did, was first or second, was the women's lacrosse.
First
one.
I think that was Beth, the first one. Yeah.
And it was a really fun episode to listen to for me because I know nothing about lacrosse to begin with. I didn't certainly know anything about the difference between men's and women's lacrosse, or that we even had those teams that were here. So I mean, it was just a great start. It was a fun episode, and I love what you're doing with it.
Thank you. Yeah, we've covered a lot. It's kind of been fun to look back, and I want to do that here in a minute. But one of the things that we started, format-wise, was some quick hits to sort of let me get into the minds of my guests off the top. So I have some quick hits for you.
Hit me.
Okay. Who's your favorite athlete of all time? Or you can name a few. I know it's a lot of pressure to pick one name.
It's hard because even though I'm not known as being like a hardcore sports guy, I have definitely followed sports for a long time, starting when I was a kid playing basketball and football. And I'll tell you, the first couple of people that pop into my head, well, first of all, Jordan is the first one that popped into my head.
I was going to predict Michael Jordan.
Yeah. I mean, that guy what he did for the game of basketball was just amazing. I mean, he really was a true steward of the game and a good ambassador for the game of basketball. And I'm dominantly a basketball person. I do like football as well.
As far as watching,
though,
basketball and football.
Yeah.
What about playing yourself?
Oh, playing?
Yeah.
I would basketball. I mean, if I was going to play actively, I haven't been out playing basketball in quite a while, but if I was, basketball would be my sport. But I've also always had a lot of admiration. I grew up, started watching football. My mom was actually a big football fan. So in the 70s, and I kind of, because I lived in a small town at that time, there was no football team nearby. I kind of glommed on to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Okay.
And so I think of guys like Terry Bradshaw and Franco Harris and Mean Joe Green, who UNT, right? And some of those guys kind of pop into my head. But then we moved to Indianapolis, and in the early 80s, we got the Colts. And I remember thinking, oh, why did we get the Colts? They're terrible. And they were for a long time. And then the Peyton Manning era happened. And, I mean, that guy was just unbelievable. I think even though he's got a couple of Super Bowl rings, that doesn't even do him justice for what a great quarterback he was.
Right.
And so yeah. Anyways, those are my.
He was a good savior then for the Colts.
He really was, and he was an all around good guy too. I appreciate the ones that managed to stay out of trouble and lead by example.
Yeah, and his whole family seems to be that way. So one of the quick hits was favorite team. I'm going to go with Steelers and Colts.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Steelers and Colts.
basketball, though? I thought you had a basketball team.
I do. Well, I'm more of a college basketball guy.
Yeah.
And in that case, it's Indiana University.
Okay. What about your favorite sports movie?
Ooh, sports movie.
This might have been a no-brainer if you just said Indiana University.
Yeah, I got to go to
gonna say
Hoosiers for sure.
Hoosiers.
But, Friday Night Lights was a really fun movie, too. I really enjoyed that one as well.
So you mentioned as a kid playing football and basketball. How far did that go? Like, how far into your life did you play sports?
So I only played football 1 year, and I was not very good at football, so I didn't bother carrying that on very much further. I played basketball for a number of years. I actually played baseball a lot when I was a kid as well.
Okay.
Organized on teams. But basketball was what I most enjoyed. But I hit the height I'm at right now in 8th grade.
Oh.
And I was excited. I thought, I guess still got a few years. I'm going to put on a few more inches. No, it stopped there. So as I got into high school in Indiana, Indiana high school basketball is what high school football is in Texas.
Okay.
And it's insanely competitive, and there's a lot of really, really good players. And I just did not have the skills to, even make our high school team.
Yeah.
So, I was very active and took part in a lot of the games and was always there, but I was never on the team.
So I sat in on a podcast episode that you had with Andy Milovich of the Rough Riders. And I'm pretty sure you guys talked, I think it was all off mic, but you guys talked a lot of sports. And I think it was all surrounded about Indiana basketball or college basketball and all those things. And I couldn't keep up because I'm not an Indiana basketball fan, so I didn't even know what you guys were talking about. But lots of names and lots of memories and championships and all kinds of things. So who are some of those big names of Indiana basketball that you, that I would know?
Well, sure, Bobby Knight is the first one that pops out in your head, the coach, right?
Yeah, and because he was coach at my school.
And then he came to Texas Tech and really helped kind of turn that program around. The era for me of Indiana basketball was kind of in the mid to late 80s when I was most paying attention to it and attached to it when I was in high school. And I remember the year after I graduated, or was it the year of graduation? Either way, there was a kid named Damon Bailey that was kind of a local hero and a really, really good, solid high school player. Was a good, solid college player as well, but I just don't think he had quite the chops for pro. I went to high school with Eric Montross, who's a friend. So he ended up playing. He ended up playing at North Carolina.
Yeah.
But Eric was somebody there. Keith Smart was the guy who hit the game-winning shot against Syracuse the last time they won a championship. So those are some of the names that first pop into my head when I think about Indiana basketball.
Are they still good?
I don't know that any of them are still playing in the NBA. Eric, I know, is retired.
I mean, Hoosiers basketball.
They've had some tough years. They've certainly had a lot of promise. But they're struggling, I think, a little bit right now with being sort of the Indiana of legend.
Yeah.
But, it's Indiana basketball. They'll come back around.
They'll come around.
They will come back around.
The good ones always do, right? Okay, a bit of a hypothetical, but maybe not. If you could join me at a Frisco sporting event this year, what would it be? So all these things we talk about on H&P, Hustlin Pro, like 5K races and Legends and FC Dallas and Rough Riders and high school football at the Star and lacrosse and hockey and all these things that happen up here. What would you come watch with me?
Can I pick two?
Yeah.
Okay. The first one is I would love to go to a Legends game in the G League championship or tournament. I'd love to see them really just own it 1 year and take it all the way. The next one would probably be a lacrosse game because I've never actually gone and watched lacrosse, and I'd love to try something new.
And it is new and it's different. I got to go to, I think I did 2 or 3 of the Rattlers games at the Star this year, and they're definitely fun to watch because, in the Star, first of all, right, that being in that facility, but those players, it's so different in football. They have padding on and things, but it's different than a full football padding to where you can still see them really move, I mean, they're in shorts and socks and in the jersey and all that, but they move so quick and it all happens so fast, the way these shots happen and how fast they're shooting. So it's really fun.
Does it feel a little similar to hockey in that way? It's kind of how I envision it.
And the reason it reminds me of hockey is because they do line changes. So in play, there's a shot clock. But in play, the offense and defense are fluidly changing as a line.
Yeah.
On and off the field during play. So it's quick again. Like that's part of what feels like hockey because a whole line of guys, and then there's specific face-off guys, and they'll come off the field, and then there's another line of guys going in and out. So.
How many guys are on the field at one time?
Oh, I don't know any lacrosse answers.
Okay,
I don't know.
I'm just curious. I have no idea. So
I mean, I could guess, but I would be wrong because I don't know. I mean, it's similar to a soccer lineup, which is 11 guys on the field with goalies and everything. So that's my guess is that it's maybe 10 guys playing. There's forwards, there's defenders, there's middies, and there's outside and inside guys. So it's the same kind of thought process there. But I don't know.
okay,
I'll have to fact check and get
we need
back
to go
you
to
on
a
that.
game then.
Yes,
Let's make that happen.
let's do it. All right, if we get a World Cup here in Frisco, as we're lobbying to try to get something of the 2026 North American World Cup. If we get anything here, I'm curious, will you politely push me aside as your sports writer and go and get in on the action as local media, or would you just pass and not get into it?
No, it's going to be you.
Oh, good. Yay.
You know far more about soccer than I do. I think it would be disingenuous for me to show up and try to even pretend to know. Like, it's funny because this is a big soccer community in Frisco. And for whatever reason, I know people love it, and I certainly don't have anything against the sport. It's just never one I've gotten attached to. I don't really know the players. I don't know that much about the game. I've watched a little bit here or there, but and I love having the FC Dallas here because there's so much energy around everything that they do.
Yeah.
Me personally, I haven't gotten real attached to soccer, so I would absolutely send you.
Thanks. So I would be a fish out of water myself just because of the scope, like world soccer.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd be lost myself. I know enough, to get by here locally and barely for international play, but World Cup, I mean, all of the different countries. I don't know enough of the different history, but I could learn. And
I was going to say, if we know that it's coming, you could bone up on that stuff.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be ready.
Yeah. And, using Ryan, he would fill me in on a lot because he can pretty much predict who's going to come out of what group for, and how they're all going to place and play out coming out of the group rounds and everything pretty well. So anyway, I hope Frisco does their part and impresses enough people to get something here.
Yeah,
I've even
too.
heard rumors, even if it's maybe just like media center or something, I'd take anything just because it would be a really a once in a lifetime chance for somebody like us to even be around an activity like that.
Yeah, and it's so watched worldwide that any involvement would definitely be welcome. And I mean, why not? We're getting the PGA. We got the Cowboys headquarters. So many good things are happening here. Why not a World Cup?
Exactly.
I love it.
Okay, I want to ask you your opinion. Since this is selfish, we're celebrating this Hustlin Pros, been around a year. We made it to a year. I didn't know if you had any favorite episodes or guests. I have some favorites, and I wondered if any of those ring any bell. Do you have any you want to say?
Well, I'm going to go back to that first episode
Okay.
again. Really, to me, that was such a great start to the podcast, and I learned a lot from listening to it. So it's always hard to beat that first one right out of the gate when it's that good.
Yeah.
But I like the episode you did with Oliver too. It's fun to get a
Game
layperson's.
Changers?
Yeah.
That episode literally changed my family's life. Long story.
tell.
I don't have to go into it on this because I could talk about it forever, and it's like a crazy thing. But that Game Changers episode, when I was researching that, is when I came across the Game Changers documentary about going plant-based eating. Because Game Changers is just literally that's what it's called, and it had nothing to do with the episode, but it did have a sports, like it just came up in my research because it's athletes talking about what they eat. Mm-hmm. So there was a sports angle to it, but anyways, it was a game changer. It's a well-titled documentary because a lot of people when they watch it is a game changer. So it's funny you say that. That was a game changer for me and my family, the way that we all eat and live over the last several months. One of my favorites when I think about the year of talking to people, just the most impressive young lady, Hannah Mandel, the Wakeland soccer player, was one of my first interviews. She was episode number 3, but I was like blown away that a probably 18-year-old was that well spoken and had these goals and accomplishments, so many things she had already done. And I keep up with her. She's at Pomona College in California. We were messaging during the Super Bowl because I think she looks like Pat Mahomes. And I said, y'all could be brother and sister. And so we were joking about that. But when I see her out in the community before she left for college, she would always come up and say hi and give me a hug and chat, and just the sweetest young lady. And I just thought she was a really good, inspirational young person to have on to kick off as far as the high school kids that we had on the show. She set the bar high. one of my favorite interviews, it was episode 26. It was Reggie Cannon. It was the first one that we moved from kind of do-it-yourself like studio into this awesome studio that we have here in Frisco. But Reggie is he's an FC Dallas player, but he got a lot of U.S. men's national team call-ups over the year, and so watching him kind of explode onto the scene was awesome. But he was a really good interview and exciting. And then I interviewed his teammate Edwin Cerrillo, which is kind of the opposite. He hadn't even stepped foot on the field yet when I interviewed him, but I asked for him because we're both from Waco. And I wanted to hear his story, and his story was pretty amazing in that he really sacrificed. He moved here on his own as a young teenager.
I remember you talking about
right.
that. Yeah.
And I got to talk to him a week after he signed his professional contract. And who knew what the year had in store for him, right? But then we sent our photographer squad he was at the first game that Edwin got to play on the field, and captured a photo of Edwin and his dad hugging after the game that Edwin cherishes, loves it, because his dad wanted to play pro soccer, and just that story was awesome. It gives me chills thinking about it. And Edwin and I keep up. Of course, I see him at all FC Dallas games and stuff, but we're friends on social, and we message each other and things like that too. We joke about Waco.
You're making some good contacts.
Soccer stuff. I know.
Sports field, yeah.
Well, to me, they're my friends, but they probably don't think that. And I love all the Legends interviews I've gotten to do with Booker and Byron and Chad Brown, the player, and Al Whitley, the most recent one. So I think those are just kind of my most memorable. I learned a lot from the Mike Leary episode, who's the producer for the Stars and the Rangers. I think it's so fascinating, thinking just for a minute what his life is like, to figure out what camera angle and replay and all these things that are happening at a Texas Rangers baseball game or a Dallas Stars hockey game.
A lot of fast decision making, I would imagine, to keep up with all of that.
Yes,
as
for
it's happening.
sure, for sure. And I know you're kind of like I said, the IT guy, and you look at more of the data, but from sort of the social reach of some of the episodes from the first year, some of our most popular ones were Hannah Mary Cook, which was a high school swimmer that was heading off to college. She was very popular online. And Nick over at the Lakes Tennis Academy, when we talked about his young athletes who won Junior Wimbledon, had just won Junior Wimbledon. And Bryce Wasserman, one of the lacrosse players, a pro lacrosse player. And then Vicky at the Rough Riders, when we talked about her and her husband touring all the baseball parks. So those were some of our most kind of popular. Well, Edwin, the FC Dallas players are very popular too.
Link all of those up in the show
following.
notes so that people can go find some of those back episodes. That's a great
mental note. Will do.
A bit of information.
Yeah,
there.
I mean, the only thing else I'm curious, do you hear from, as a leader of Lifestyle Frisco and my boss and all, do you hear anything or want to see anything from H&P, Hustlin Pro, it's my H&P is what I call it, and year 2 that we're missing?
Wow. No, I mean, you've covered such a good variety of stories across all of the levels and sports teams here. I think it's just keep going. I think you're probably in a better position than I am to judge if something needs to change or improve, or, where could I take this? Where could I go next with this? I'd love to hear from our audience as well. What would they like to hear more of? So I would encourage anybody that's listening to this to leave a comment or hit Kelly up on Facebook or leave a lifestyle comment on the Lifestyle Frisco Facebook page, Instagram, whatever you want. What would you guys like to hear more about? Do you want more interviews with athletes? Is it more of the behind the scenes stuff? I certainly think as it gets closer, more coverage of golf and the PGA will be appropriate.
Definitely.
So
that is an opportunity that I need to take advantage of.
Yeah, with the amount of sports stuff going on in Frisco, I don't even know how you can keep up with all of it. You just kind of got to rotate between the different sports and teams and different levels and keep going. But my personal favorite, now this isn't necessarily how we make a business decision, but my personal favorite is really, I think, the high school kids, because you're catching somebody at a time when they're showing a lot of talent and a lot of promise. They've had some time to develop their skills. They've still got room to grow, and who knows what the future holds, but you're kind of getting them on that cusp. And
the who knows what the future holds piece, someone said you should revisit them later. And
Absolutely.
I already want to do that. Only a year in, I know what some of them are doing, and I know that some of them aren't doing the sport that they set out to do already. And I think that's almost more fascinating. Like I'm proud of the ones that are killing it, doing their college thing. But it's also fascinating to learn why some of the ones tried it and are done.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many reasons why being a college athlete might not be right for that person. And so those are interesting stories that I think we could revisit already.
Certainly. I know, as somebody who was, at least I would use the term athlete very loosely growing up, I wrestled as well. And I loved wrestling.
Well, here we are wrapping it up, and now you
I know.
me
I
this?
just kind of forgot about it, to be honest, to mention it. But when we went to high school, I was a decent wrestler, actually. It was probably one of the few sports I actually had a bit of a natural inclination and the right build for. But when we got into high school, I very quickly found out that, the seriousness and the intensity just went up 10 notches. And that just wasn't really for me. It wasn't what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
Those guys live, eat, and breathe that stuff all year round.
Yeah, there's many cases when if it's not what you want to do 100% of your day, don't do it. Do something else.
And so I didn't.
Yeah.
So I kind of stuck with recreational sports and stepped away. But I can only imagine it's another order of magnitude more intense when you go to college and then to the pros. So you really got to be made for it.
Especially college, because being a college athlete and being a college student are separate, and having the college student experience are separate things.
Yeah.
Just the fun things you get to do as just a student is what we all think of when we think of our college memories, and theirs are totally different, and in a good way too. But some people get there and realize, I didn't mean to sacrifice all of that. So switch back and forth. So maybe we'll have some revisits to some of our young athletes that we talked to.
I love it.
Well, thank you, Scott. It was fun to have you in the studio.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah.
It's good to talk about sports.
It is.
I don't get to do it all that often, and I don't want to date your podcast, but did you watch the Super Bowl this year?
Yeah, every second.
It was a great game.
Fantastic
it was
game.
So much, and I was rooting for Kansas City.
The second half was fantastic.
Yeah, I was rooting for Kansas City, even though I'm not a particularly big Kansas City or 49ers fan. Didn't really have a dog in the game.
I hear there was an article on Lifestyle Frisco about why you should root for Kansas City.
Somebody in this room might have written that article named Kelly. But I had some friends that were rooting for them, so I just picked them. Yeah. But it was fun to watch an actual good game for once. It seems like so often the Super Bowl, one of the teams just has an off night and they kind of get blown out, and that's no fun.
Yeah.
It was a good, you really, until the last couple of minutes, you weren't really sure how this was going to turn out.
No, I thought at halftime I was worried, and then I thought Pat Mahomes might have bit off more than he can chew, like some people were saying all week with the 49ers being able to still dominate. But he did his thing. He came back later than he usually comes back in those playoff games, but he did it, and it was fun to watch. Not having my own, diehard, I wanted them to win, but at the same time, I wasn't going to be that upset because it's not my team. But it was sure fun to watch someone who represents my college. I mean, we don't have very many big names that come out of Texas Tech, so to have somebody like that everybody loves, do that
Classy kid.
And bring it back. Yeah, he's great. He's fun to watch and fun to kind of watch the whole story unfold about, him being from East Texas and everything. So it was fun to watch. Good game. I loved, halftime, everything. Everything was a good year.
I can't say I was enthused by the halftime show.
It
J-Lo
wasn't
and
for
Shakira
everybody.
just don't do much for me, so I was,
kind
of out on that one. But
no, it wasn't for everybody. But couldn't take my eyes off of it. So I think that's the point, right? Of halftime.
They're keeping your attention.
Yeah.
Were there any commercials let's talk about the commercials before we go. Were there any commercials that stood out to you that?
Yes. And let's see. Gosh, you're asking me questions, Scott, and I'm not prepared.
I'm used to being the host, so it comes natural.
So I've listened to sports talk radio talk about this for a while now, and now I'm regurgitating their conversations because everybody's talking about the Loretto one, the sad old man one.
Yeah, the Google commercial. That was a good one.
Which was, it was touching, and it's memorable. I loved I think my favorite thing of the whole production, I know you asked me about ads, but I loved the 100-year intro that they did pregame. That was so impressive and just fascinating how they went, just how they told that story and how they showed all of the players on the field. That was really cool to see all those guys' faces. But I loved how the NFL did the little kid running into the stadium.
That was fun.
It was like an ad, right? But then it was, they integrated it into real time.
Yeah.
So that was cool just production-wise. But that was one of my favorites because it had all those cameos in it. Everybody from Jerry to, all the players and all these different cool scenes. And so that one stands out to me the most just because it was like a little Odell Beckham Jr. kid. That's what we thought at first. Oh, is this a flashback? Is this like Odell Beckham, whatever. And then he comes on the field. So that was cool. I mean, I'm trying to remember what else I loved. What did you love?
I got it. The one that stands out most in my mind was the Reese's commercial with all the cliches.
I don't know.
Where she was like talking to somebody like, get your head out of the sand, and
did I miss?
You
that
don't remember
one?
all the cliches? If you go look up the Reese's Super Bowl commercial,
I feel
it was probably one of the more edgy ones, but the end of it was absolutely hysterical.
I don't know
wanna
it.
spoil it for
Yeah,
you.
I missed it. I try really hard to not like. It's hard
Yeah.
because it's like the one time you really can't get up and leave the room too much, or you're gonna miss something.
Yeah.
I might have missed that one.
Go look it up. I'm sure it's on YouTube.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll go back and revisit. I usually do that every year anyways, because there's so much going on in the room
Yeah.
that I can't hear what I want to hear anyway. And I go back, and just my background in advertising, I always used to go back and kind of obsess about all of those, and they always get ranked and everything every year.
Well, that's another question for your listeners then, is they listen to this podcast. What was your favorite Super Bowl commercial this year?
Yeah.
Leave us a comment.
That's a good one. Good question.
All right.
Okay. Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks for having me on. It was fun.